So, college and career readiness, of course, is necessary. We want to make sure that all of our children are ready for what comes beyond their primary and secondary formal education. So we talk about college readiness. But however, I rarely hear about high school readiness. Are kids ready to get to high school and really set the foundation for what happens next? Let's talk about it.
When they see me, they know that every day when I'm breathing, it's for us to go farther. You know, every time I speak, I want the truth to come out. You know what I'm saying? Every time I speak, I want to shiver. You know, I don't want them to be like, they know what I'm going to say because it's polite. They know what I'm going to say. And even if I get in trouble, you know what I'm saying? Ain't that what we're supposed to do? I'm not saying I'm going to rule the world or I'm going to change the world, but I guarantee that I will spark the brain that will change the world. And that's our job, is to spark somebody else watching us. We might not be the ones, but let's not be selfish, and because we're not going to change the world, let's not talk about how we should change it. I don't know how to change it, but I know if I keep talking about how dirty it is out here, somebody's going to clean it up.
And now he's been promoted. His job, principal.
So, I've been fortunate enough to have had a career that has spanned across pre-K all the way through to 12th grade. And in some cases, it can be said that my secondary education also involved the college space. I did work for early college school as well, where our students were actually earning college credit while they were in high school. So we had several students who had earned up to a full year of college credits. So I think I have a qualified understanding of what these spaces look like. You know, that articulation from pre-K all the way through to when the student gets the high school diploma. And I'll tell you this, we all know this, what I'm about to say. There's one particular grade band within that space, pre-K through 12, that everyone I've ever come across has always been like, wow, that is the most difficult space. And that is middle school, or in some cases, some places we call that junior high school. And it's a space where I'm not sure if we realize that too often we treat it as an extension of elementary school. There are many innovative places that say, you know, junior high school is literally phase one of high school. But that's not always the case in urban settings. You know, junior high school becomes that place because a lot of the regulations around what that space looks like are not well defined. You know, I'll give you an example. In New York State, the state assessments for academic progress in English language arts and mathematics runs from 3rd grade through 8th grade. So these scores or these exams are pretty much an extension of itself all the way to the 8th grade. And then when you get to high school, you start working on Regents exams, which is more testing core content knowledge in, you know, in particular subject areas, you know, which are pretty much the core content areas: math, English, science, social studies. So that middle school area, or in some places we call it junior high school, becomes more of a place of arrested development. You know, you're working on the same foundational skills. In some cases, I think because of the fact that it runs from 3rd through 8th, there's an expectation that from 3rd grade on, people are creating spaces for kids who are behind to possibly catch up before they're done with that 3rd through 8th grade band. What I mean by that is, you have a kid in the 3rd grade, they don't do as well, but it's okay. We're gonna catch them up before the next state exam, 4th grade. Same thing happens. Oh, we're going to catch them for the next state exam, 5th grade. And we keep doing this. So now they're moving out of elementary school into middle school. And they're still behind. And guess what? Somebody's expecting the next person to catch them up before they graduate and go to high school. There's a very clear understanding that once you get to high school, it's different. And at least that is what kids are being told. But the whole entire time, they're not really being pushed in a realistic way in preparation for high school. It's pretty much the narrative is middle school is difficult. They're going through puberty, their hormones and everything else. They'll be better when they get to high school. But let me tell you this, having been a high school teacher, I was a high school teacher. I was a high school dean, I was a high school assistant principal, and I was a high school principal. The kids get to high school, and in a lot of cases, it is damn near too late. We're still going to do what we need to do, but we know that we will never get them to exactly where they need to be grade level wise. It is an extreme rarity. So we kind of patch kids up and say, how do we keep the momentum moving you forward, knowing that you have a lot of gaps in your learning, gaps that should have been covered in the earlier grades, in the earlier years. So for me, having been an administrator, pre-K through 12, that has been part of pushing the initiative of college readiness, I learned as a high school principal that there needs to be a real conversation about high school readiness. How are we preparing kids to function in high school? Not just saying, hey, when you get to college, you'll be expected to write these kinds of papers or do this kind of things, blase. But what are the things that we should be telling our kids about what's going to be happening when they get to high school? So I can tell you this, presently now as a middle school principal, again for the second time, and I'll be honest with you, I'm enjoying it because now I've seen the issue, and a major issue, and I'm trying to resolve it in my new space as a middle school principal. And readiness for high school is the focus, but not just academic readiness. Because yes, they need to be able to read, write, and perform when they get to high school, but also how are we activating parts of their brains that helps them to see what the future looks like. And a lot of times the future that we want them to see is several years down the road. Literally. I mean, years down the road, so far down that there is no realistic connection unless we bring that connection into the building. Now, what do I mean by that? We talk about careers and the workforce and all these things that a 12-year-old is not going to be able to truly connect to because it's so far away. A 17-year-old who's like now thinking to themselves, oh my goodness, in a year from now, I'm going to be in a space where I have to make a decision. Am I going to college? Am I going to the workforce? That's very realistic. So what ends up happening, and I've seen this, 10th, 11th, 12th graders who are damn near having nervous breakdowns because they don't know where they fit in the world. They haven't been exposed to enough for them to make an informed decision of what happens next. But I think that can and should occur in middle school. That exposure to careers and ideas and real prototyping of the future should start in the middle years. But actually as early as elementary school, but take it to middle years. In the brain starting to form, everything that's happening in the child's body, there's a space there for downloading ideas and understandings of the world, which we don't do, and what we need to do. Because again, I've walked into classrooms in my school and see our middle schoolers, 12, 13, 14-year-olds, having high-level conversations, like very high-level conversations about the world and the potentiality of what they want to do. But these things are not things that are formulated in curriculum. These are things that are happening because we have adults who understand the importance of this and are weaving and blending these things into their curriculum and the coursework that kids are engaging in. So it is very important that we start to have conversations in middle school and high school. I mean, high school should be talking down to the middle school should be talking down to high school, saying, what do we need to do here? Middle school, what do we need to do in this space to ensure that by the time our kids transition into your space, that they have the basic foundational skills and understanding on how to function there. High schools, we need to let you know what we need from you. What are the things that our kids should be able to do at a basic level when they come here? But this thing should not just be written on paper. It should be set in stone in the sense that there are programmings where middle schoolers get to visit high schools. High schools get to visit middle schools. This year alone, we've had one inter-school visit between two middle schools, our middle school and another middle school, to talk about and to give our kids an understanding of what the experiences look like in two different settings. And we did that with MS-180, Principal Marlon Williams, an amazing school leader. Because most school leaders would have looked at the idea and said, "What is this? Why would we want to have middle schoolers visit another middle school?" But those kids who participate in that visit, they're different now. But they're like, "Whoa, this is what our counterparts are doing in another campus." But since then, we had a visit to Bronx Science, one of arguably one of the most elite high schools in the country. Excuse me. Our kids got to spend an afternoon there, sitting in a class, in a high-level high school science class, visiting with teachers, being given a tour of their school by high school ambassadors, showing our middle schoolers, this is what we do here. And those kids who participated coming back were different. They were like, whoa, that is what my future could possibly look like in a school like that. And we're planning more. So while a lot of schools are planning just college trips, I'm like, no, we're doing high school trips, and for those amazing principals who are willing to be like, come and see, that is planting seeds that's going to make the transition for our middle schoolers much easier and much more intentional. The other thing is, beyond the transition space, what's going to happen, what needs to happen between here and there, is how we upping the middle school experience to look as much as possible like the high school experience. Yes, we can't copy every single thing, but there's so much that we can be doing, and things that I think about are like, project-based learning, starting that as early as possible, utilizing interdisciplinary approaches. How are we cross-pollinating between English language arts and math and social studies, science and English language arts? How are we, cross-pollinating between visual arts, and social studies? I'll give you an example. I have an amazing social studies teacher and an amazing art teacher. And my art teacher constantly works with the core content teachers and say, hey, what are you doing in your classroom? What project can I support you in? Because we want to make sure that our kids are engaged in their multiple modalities of learning and understanding. So if they're doing this, info poster, project, that we're also utilizing all the art strategies they're using, they're learning in the art classroom to spice up what they're doing in social studies. Same thing with computer science. Kids are creating presentations and doing research in the computer lab for their ELA or social studies papers or science projects. We have digital STEM labs in our science classrooms where the students are able to engage their learning, with a mobile lab. They have laptops and they can pull out and do their research in the classroom. These things that often look more like high school and college, doing them in middle school. Yes, it might be sloppy, it might be messy, but if you start as early as sixth grade, by the time they're seventh and eighth graders, they're pros. So imagine that kid who gets into high school and says, "Oh, I've done this before. I've done this many times. I've done this for the past couple of years. So now I can focus on going deeper into researching, going deeper into the skill sets that I have, you know." But also, by leveraging technology and all the strategies that already exist in the high school and college level and middle school, you're also opening the opportunity for kids to now further push their ability to do work that allow them to, in some cases, to take high school level courses while they're in middle school. In New York State, we have the Regents exams. So my thing has always been like, if a child has shown promise and the capability of taking that exam and passing it with our support, why not? You know, I have about 20 kids who show up 7 o'clock in the morning who are 8th graders and 100% voluntary, who are preparing for 3 high school level exams, you know, to be able to show mastery in English language arts, which is an 11th grade course, in algebra 1, which is a 9th grade course, and living environment, which is typically also a 9th grade course, but they're going to knock it out, you know, God willing, before they graduate, you know, in 8th grade. So they get to high school, and those are 3 courses that they don't have to worry about. So now they can create spaces for themselves to take advanced level courses, to be able to do internships, to explore other areas, you know, in preparation for college and career readiness, right? So these are the things that academically are very, very important. Creating a space where kids are critically thinking, engaging problem solving, in problem solving, they're collaborating with each other, you know, they're engaging and developing digital literacy. Again, these are all things we expect of our kids for college, you know, and we're preparing our high school kids to be able to do intentionally. I'm saying we need to also intentionally do that in middle schools. And I'm not saying that this is not happening. It's happening. It's happening at my school. It's happening in a lot of schools. But the vast majority of middle schools are not engaged in that level of work. They're just not. They're so focused on just meeting the minimum standards, you know, of being in middle school, you know, so they can have the highest test scores. But I've seen kids with high test scores come to high school and flounder for a year or two, because their brains are so set in stone around when we've seen their learning and their growth. And it takes a while to break them out of that and allow them to really blossom in a different way. And often by the time that happens, it's almost too late. So 2 more things. The role of extracurricular activities. Extracurricular activities is very, very important. But however, we also have to redefine what those look like. I'm a believer that, you know, we need to create spaces where kids are engaged in activities that lend themselves to their future. Yes, we have to have sports. Arts are necessary. Music, all these things are great, right? All these traditional extracurricular activities are necessary. But also, intentional spaces, they allow kids to really engage in skills that are 21st century. You know, robotics. You know, I'm not just talking about building little toy cars and stuff like that out of a Lego kit. I'm talking about getting kids to really think about, how do I engineer solutions to problems? So one of the first projects that I saw some of my students do in our robotics class is they designed a cardboard hand using straws and yarn with a little motor that allowed them to control the cardboard hand and be able to grip something. And they were able to adjust the tension rate of the grip so they can pick up cups of varying weights. So they wanted to see how strong this hand was and how functional it could be, you know, if it was a real thing, helping someone who needed a prosthesis. I'm sitting here watching them present to me. We're talking about 6th and 7th graders, and there was a couple of 8th graders in there. It's after school club, and I was like, wow, what they were doing was something that literally solves a problem. You know, the other day they were building a vacuum cleaner, a Roomba. You know, using a mortar. They built their own. They did a makeshift wheels with rubber bands for friction and grip on the, you know. And I was watching this. I was like, this is so amazing because everyone's design was different. They were thinking, hey, this is what I want this thing to be able to do. It wasn't a cookie cutter. We all creating the same thing. There was space in there and autonomy for them to really be innovative. You know, I've walked into my computer lab and watched. We have a specific girls code club, and I walked in there and these young ladies were coding, and they were so locked in. And I'm looking at them like, well, I don't even know what the heck you're doing right now, but they were so locked in on the activity that they were engaged in. I thought to myself, how far can they take this, you know? But then what was interesting, I believe, like the following 2 days later, some of the girls from the girls' code were in robotics, and the task they were working on required some coding. So, because they had already expanded their minds around coding, in the girls' code club, in the robotics, the assignment, which was very basic code, they decided, you know what, we're gonna make this a little bit more advanced. So I'm watching them, and they have more like several lines more of code than was required. But they were able to kind of like hack the assignment and say, no, we're going to take this further. And I was like, this is exactly what I call innovation in middle school. This is exactly what I talk when I say we're preparing our kids for high school, because the thought process now had expanded beyond that. You know, something as simple as esports. We have a space where our young men, primarily our young men, there's definitely several girls there, but primarily our young men, during lunchtime, we're setting up multiple stations where they're gaming. But we're using that as the first step towards expanding our esports club for them to start building their own gaming systems, not just playing with Xboxes and PlayStations, but now saying, what does it look like to build a PC complete from scratch together, you know, with all the specifications that we need to be able to play certain games, you know, the speed, the bit rate, the refresh rate on the monitors, what kind of fans are we going to need to keep the tower cool. Like, these are conversations that we're having. Now, mind you, these are 11, you know, I mean, in some cases 11, talking about 12, 13, and in a few cases 14-year-olds. This is what I call innovation in middle school. But I'm going to add another thing. So we're working towards becoming a digital communication school. That's going to be our theme, because digital communications, like what I'm doing right now, spans every career field. If you're talking about news media, the medical field, right now we have telehealth. If people now are doing medical services through this medium, fashion, entertainment, sports, all involve digital communications. So that's our theme. So to share with you how powerful when you prepare kids the right way for the next phase of their lives. So yesterday we had a visit from Jade Grieve, who is the chief of the New York City Schools chief of student pathways. And we did a showcase for her. 5 kids. We're starting our digital communications officially this coming semester, which is next week. But I asked the partner that we're using, can you come and put together a showcase? You know, and I was asking, like, how much time do you need? And we had very little time. So we had the morning before, like literally an hour and a half before the guests arrived, to identify 5 kids and show them how to use the equipment, set up, and we're talking about from the camera operation, students who will be doing the interviewing, the production manager, the actual person operating the switchboards to switch cameras around. This was something I was like, listen, this is stressful for most adults. But these 5 kids walked in there after about an hour and a half of training and showing how to do it, I walked in with the guests and some other guests, and our guest sat down and was interviewed for about half an hour. It was about 20 minutes. It was a 20-minute interview. I was watching this, and these are 8th graders asking powerful questions. I mean, our interviewer was asking amazing questions, and everybody else was doing their thing. One student, again, was also managing the chat room. So he's sitting to the side, managing the chat room with his headphones. The other person is controlling the camera. So whenever somebody was speaking, switching the cameras, the other person is making sure running the A cam. Then the other person is managing the time. And these were happening in a way that said to me, we just gave our kids, or we're about to give our kids, entry into a world that most adults are trying to figure out. But they're going to figure this out in middle school. So that's what we're talking about here. When we talk about how we engage our kids academically, we bring in that extracurricular activities. In most cases, a lot of my extracurricular activities I'm going to actually embed during the school day. That is the trick. Now, how do we make that during the school day so every kid is engaged in these spaces, or at least have the choice of engaging in these spaces? And then lastly, we got to talk about engaging families and communities. A lot of the things that I'm doing in my school and successful middle schools are doing involve making sure parents and the community are involved, having the right partnerships, having people who can see the vision and who want to invest the energy into our young people. Because again, I'll tell you this, the only limit to a child's success is the limit that we as the adults put on them. When we say they can't do it or they're too young, then of course they can't do it, and they are too young. But however, if we say, how do we expose them and make sure they have a truly authentic experience, then guess what? They will always rise to our expectations and even beyond. Tomorrow, our 8th graders are going on a field trip. They're going over to Coney Island. We're in the South Bronx. They're going to Coney Island. It's going to be a nice, probably an hour or so drive. They're taking buses. And the thing that's interesting is the trip. They're going to the aquarium, and they're not just going to the aquarium to go to the aquarium. They're going to the aquarium to firsthand see a sample of aquatic life. Jellyfish and fish and sea mammals and all these things that living landlocked in New York City, you don't get to see. You might see it on TV, you might see a video, but to see it in person. I remember the first time I saw it was like about a 5-foot jellyfish. It was huge. And I was just like, how is this thing even alive? I could see right through it. You saw the little membrane. They go like, well, that's where the brain is. And you're like, but how? It blew my mind. And so our kids are going to go there, and they're going to do a project around sustainability of the ocean and Earth, in correlation with all the things that are happening right now with weather across the planet. Like that level of exposure and thinking and output is exactly what we need our kids to be able to do. One thing I want to say in closing, it's no longer just about closing the achievement gap. Yes, this is still a struggle to close that achievement gap nationwide. But however, we also have to engage in closing the experiential gap. The experiential gap. A lot of our kids are not being properly exposed to things that they should be exposed to. So what ends up happening is they can't see it for themselves because they've never seen it, period. And that's our job, to expand their experiences, to truly embed the things that we want them to be able to see, not just in conversation, but in action and activity. All right. With that being said, till next time, have an amazing day. All right. Peace.